So, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming tonight. Tonight, we've got a question and answer session with four people who are Keith Bartlem, Jane Medwell, Margaret Murdin, and Dave Bonner. They're all master beekeepers and they are all, most importantly, GH assessors. So, you can ask them your questions about your GH assessments as we go through. We do have a couple of starter questions which we'll start with. And then if you want to ask a question once we've finished those, put your hand up, wave at me, and we'll go through those. So the first one I've got is, how long do I have to wait after taking my basic? Can I start with you on that one, Keith, please?
Okay, so the actual syllabus says you need to keep bees for 5 years. So technically, after the basic, it's 4 years after the basic, is kind of where it goes. May be problems where we've had somebody who's kept bees, maybe let's say for 20 years, and then it's just decided that they want to go into the advanced husbandry, but need to get the basic to get that stepping stone into the exam system. So that may need to go to the exam board to assess that beekeeper's experience. But basically, the bottom line is 4 years from the basic, and having kept bees for 5 years is the stock answer for that one.
Thank you.
That, Diane.
Yes, go on, Margaret.
I think it depends. If somebody is a new beekeeper and has got 2 colonies and they do their basic after 1 year, they maybe lose a colony, or they've still got 2 colonies and they're not linked up with an association on a regular basis, and they don't go to other people's hives and they don't see other beekeeping. I think another 3 or 4 years is not enough. But I think it's a question of hive years, and Keith mentioned this. I think if you've got 10 colonies from day one, which you shouldn't have, but never mind. And you go around and you go to meetings and you go and see other people's bees, and you get a lot of experience, because it's the thing that counts is the amount of experience, not actually the number of years. That's just a guideline. Some people might need 7 years or 5 years. They ought to think about how much experience of going into the bees and other people's bees as well as their own.
Thanks, Margaret. Do you want to add anything, Jane?
No, but I think Margaret's point about other people's bees is a really good one, actually. One of the best things you can do to prepare is to go and look at other people's bees and get them to tell you what they're doing. Not in the expectation that they are any better or worse a beekeeper than you, but it just increases your experience of looking at things. And when there's somebody else's bees, you get really diagnostic, because you start working out what's going on here, what has already gone on here, and what are the bees doing. So no, I think thanks, Margaret, that's a top tip.
Excellent. Dave, do you want to add anything?
Excuse me. Yes, I think that what I would add into that is, it's not just looking at bees, it's actually the experience of doing the manipulations which are covered in the syllabus. Because you could have 5, 6, 7 years of keeping bees, and keeping the bees quite successfully, but you've never ever done a shuck swarm, or you've never done a Bailey comb change. Yeah,
that's important, because many years ago Margaret Thomas said to me, you've got to get these manipulations into your hands. It's no good having them in your head, because when you're asked to do it, it's got to be automatic. So Dave is right. You've got to do all the manipulations lots of times and know exactly why you're doing them and what you're doing, and be able to just do them immediately when you're asked.
Right, thank you. The next question we have is, are they really going to open my jars of honey? So yes. Shall we start with Dave there?
I find this really interesting. The syllabus says 2 things. As part of the preparation, you've got to have jars of honey labelled for sale, and the assessor may sample it. So it's a predetermined condition that, yes, they may be opened, so do not put tamper-proof labels on them. The assessors will respect the honey. They won't do anything bad to it, which then stops it being sold afterwards. They're not going to take a lot out of it. And then within the syllabus, further down, one of the last sections, it talks about having honey ready for the show bench. Yeah. So my short answer to that is yes, we will look at them. We will open and look at them.
I think the other thing, ready for the show, on the show bench, as you will know, they don't have the the beekeeper's label on it. So if the beekeeper wanted to, they could put their labels beside the jars and their tamper-proof labels. But I've always opened the honey and smelt the odor and tasted it a little bit and put it back. We don't do any damage to the honey at all.
Keith, you're nodding. Do you want to add something?
I totally agree with what Dave and Margaret have said. But I also have a thing about a very experienced beekeeper is no longer with us, but he won lots of national shows, etc., etc. Basically said the honey that you put out for sale should be as good as the show honey, and that's a really good mantra to go by. So you keep the standard at its best, so the honey sells itself.
Thanks, Keith. Do you want to add anything, Jane?
No, except for if I was preparing honey for the show bench, I wouldn't put tamper-proof labels on it. And as that's in the syllabus, that pretty much clinches it. So they're not going to do anything awful to your honey, but they are going to probably open it and smell it and look at the surface, perhaps, of your soft set. So, you know, make it easy, really. It's not like you have to put a dozen jars out.
Thank you. Our next question is from someone who's got a shared apiary. There's an apiary of 8 to 10 hives shared by 4 beekeepers, and 2 of them would like to take the general husbandry assessment next year. Is it best to have separate assessment dates, or would the examiners prefer to assess them both on the same day? Should we start with Keith for that one?
Personally, I would go with separate dates for it because when you get there, if it's a shared apiary and you don't actually have full control about what the colonies are doing within that apiary, then you may not, have the colonies that are required for the assessment. That's one slight problem. Second problem is that if you're having both on the same day, you could be met at the entrance of the apiary quite quickly on the second assessment, and the bees may be, a bit up. So I personally would say go for different dates. But again, this may become a problem with, are the examiners available on different dates and stuff, and a scheduling problem. So if it's a scheduling problem, then technically I wouldn't see a problem if it's only 2 people going into that apiary. However, the other people that are involved in that apiary must be notified that you're going in to help while you're going in to make an assessment in that colony, in that apiary. Sorry, I get my apiaries and colonies correct. So I would prefer not as an assessor, but practically you could probably do it. I'd prefer against it.
Thanks. Dave, do you want to add anything?
I think logistically, from an assessor's point of view, doing them on the same day, one morning, one afternoon, is better use of our time. But what Keith has said, and I have with another assessor done general husbandry of a husband and wife in the past, where we've done one in the morning and one in the afternoon in the same apiary. But this is what Keith has highlighted, is these beekeepers need to have the agreement of all the people who are involved in that apiary, and ideally have allocated and nominated hives which are assigned to beekeeper A for the assessment and another set assigned to beekeeper B for the assessment, and they're the ones who've been working it, so that we don't get into confusion in terms of the other two beekeepers having been working the hives and left them in the state which isn't good. And I think you've also got to think very clearly about your queen rearing. Is a queen rearing in the same apiary? Is it done elsewhere? Is it done separately? Is it done jointly? All these questions would need to have to be thought through.
Thanks, Dave. Anything else, sorry?
I'd like to say something about that. Yeah. I made an assumption with this question that 4 beekeepers were sharing land, that they each had their own hives. Now, that may not be the case because the general husbandry is on your bees. So I would assume that candidate A had their own 3 queen-right colonies and a queen-right nuke, and candidate B had the same. Not that they were sharing colonies at all and that they were jointly owned, because I think that's important. Also, there would need to be just candidate A there in the morning and then candidate B, because I could, the BBKA and the assessor doesn't want to be training to somewhere remote twice if they didn't have to. But also in this sort of situation, what about the honey preparation, the uncapping and the wax melting and all that? Is that separate? Is it the same? Because I'd assume that 4 people go to an apiary, they've all got their own colonies, they just share the land, and then they go home and they have got their own kit at home for honey preparation and wax melting. And, so it depends on a lot, really. It's not simply 8 colonies and 4 beekeepers or 10 colonies,
Jane?
Yes,
Oh, Caroline, sorry. She's come up on the screen there. We're a collective and we share everything.
Well, I wouldn't have too much problem with that. I'd expect, obviously, them to be able to read the records carefully. I'm torn now between Keith's point, which is a good one. It's probably better in many ways just to do one, unless, of course, those people are close together. And then, for instance, in the situation that Dave mentioned, if you've got a husband and wife, to do one and then leave the other, it's a bit cruel, really, isn't it? Because they're going to talk. So I suspect, it depends on the situation. Now, if we've got people sharing an apiary and they're both going for the GH, it's actually possible to arrange it either way. If it's best use of the assessor's time to do one in the morning and one in the afternoon, you can go with it. And if not, they could be done on different days. The assessment's going to be much. What I wouldn't want to do is to do one lot, do one candidate using one lot of hives and then try and use the same hives again in the afternoon. That would not be equitable, would it? Because those people, the second candidate would be approaching hives that have already been disturbed that day. We wouldn't want to do that.
Caroline's just come up on the screen to say they're a collective. Everything is jointly owned.
I don't mind who owns it. I would expect them to have been tending those bees themselves, and have had, long-term maintained those bees. I don't care who's got title to them, as it were. But I wouldn't want to work with one candidate in the morning to do their general husbandry and then work with another candidate on the same bees, because that wouldn't be fair on the second candidate.
All the bees.
No, yeah, good point. Thank you, Margaret. Yeah, sorry, my ethics slipped for a minute there.
Do Dave or Keith want to come back in on that point of the assets being jointly owned?
If I can.
Dave.
If they share everything, then it's better for the assessors and the candidates if they're done on the same day, because if for example the honey processing and the wax rendering facilities are all out on shore as if they're going to be used, and they're shared, then both candidates are going to use the same thing.
Mm.
So as an assessor, we only need to look at the physical facilities once to know what's happening. We can have separate discussions with candidate A and candidate B about how they're doing and all of that. So there is that aspect to it. But from a collective point of view, if there are 2 people who want to do the assessment and 4 people who own and work the bees, then there's an awful lot of discussion and agreement that's got to take place prior to the assessment to be able to work out which hives are going to be used for the assessment, so we get a good view of the capability of the beekeeper. And as I said before, kind of is the queen, what about the queen rearing? Is that done at an individual level, or is that all shared? So
And
it's not easy.
the answer to the question, take me through your records, can't be, well, I don't keep the records, Fred does that. So because it's an assessment of a sort of 360-degree look at you as a beekeeper. So you can't say, ah, yes, well, I don't do the extracting, I leave that to Carolyn. So if it's, collective is fine as long as you are developing your skills as a beekeeper. What you can't do is delegate that to someone else.
Thank you. We shall move on. I'm going to paraphrase the next couple because they came very long-winded. How much study is needed, and does it help to have done some of the modules? And if so, which modules? So I'll start, Margaret, on that one.
Oh, yes, the questioning at the end or at the beginning, depending on the weather, the questioning is based on modules 1, 2, and 3. So it definitely helps if you've studied for those modules. Whether or not you take the exam is entirely up to you, but you being familiar with the content of those syllabuses definitely helps. Studying is less important than hands-on experience with the bees and carrying out all the manipulations so swarm control and shook swarm and bellycomb changes. Doing all of that is what's important. And if you count that as studying, then that's necessary. But it's not reading bee books, it's getting experience. This is a practical assessment, but there are questions and they're based on those 3 modules, 1, 2, and 3.
Thanks, Margaret. Jane, do you want to add anything?
No, the questions are different in the general husbandry from in the modules, because in a sense we're asking you very much about practical application of that knowledge. But as Margaret says, those are the 3 core modules that we'll be talking about, and there are very obvious areas that you should read up on before the assessment. So I would, any of our Warwickshire candidates, I know Dave and I would be very keen to make sure that they've read the latest Varroa advice and foul brood advice from the National Bee Unit, and had a jolly good rootle around on the Bee Unit's site. We can point them to things like the BBK, what was BBK Learning Online is now BBK Members Hub. The name has changed. And the latest unit about health and hygiene has got a certain Dave Bonner doing a really good brood disease inspection in it. That's really worth watching. And there's a lecture by a certain Keith Bartlem about this too. So it might not just be reading books. There are things you can watch that will really help you to feel confident about doing those manipulations in your own apiary.
Thanks, Jane. Dave?
I think I agree with Margaret in the sense that there are aspects of modules 1, 2, and 3, particularly module 3, which is honey, the disease and the bee health. I think if a candidate has also done the honeybee health assessment,
That's a good idea.
that is a huge stepping stone towards general husbandry. huge stepping stone. Yeah. In fact, a lot of the general husbandry is kind of not duplicated, it builds on the honeybee health assessment. But primarily, go back to what Margaret said earlier on, people have got to have done this in the apiary, they've got to have done the manipulations, they've got to have done all the tasks physically several times, so it's muscle memory. Yeah, because when I've been an assessor, it stands out like a sore thumb. Those beekeepers who've read about the manipulations but haven't done them, they struggle. Whereas those people who've done them several times, it just flows through with lots of confidence. So it's not just the reading the books, but honeybee health and disease is absolutely critical. But it's also the manipulations and making sure that you've done them so many times, it's just completely natural.
On live bees?
On live bees primarily.
Keith, do you want to add anything to that?
Very little, but maybe you should all consider doing a shook swarm in the spring with the colony, with one of your colonies, at least one of your colonies, because a lot of assessments we get to, people have, Dave and Margaret and Jane have come onto this where, a lot of people are wary of a shook swarm. It's a fabulous manipulation, but it needs practice. And it works really well, but it doesn't make you feel good. However, as Dave said, that muscle memory. So rather than stressing yourself out on the assessment on the day, nail it. Certainly the spring, something to think about, because the shook swarm, has an awful lot of advantages.
I'd also say try your queen rearing the year before you're going to do your GH, because it doesn't work first time for 95% of the people. And then you mustn't feel despondent. You must just think, oh, this is normal. Very few people get their queen rearing right first time, but you don't want to be failing it. Don't want it to fail the year you're doing your GH. So do it the year before and then do it again.
Go on, Keith.
Yeah. Margaret's right about that, but also I want, as an assessor, I want to know the disasters. Everyone has a disaster. I've had disasters.
Yeah.
I've had this disaster. And the reason was because I didn't do this, or the bees went and decided they were going off somewhere else, and that happens. And I mean, I'll go into my pilot stuff. Any monkey can fly an aeroplane. It's when it goes wrong is what I'm interested in. But on this assessment, we give you certain tasks, make sure that that you've got it right. But certainly, as Margaret has said, queen rearing, there are disasters. I mean, I had cells that they just ignored. Well, they ate them out and ignored them last year. Thanks.
Yeah, we've all had it. And the trouble is, sometimes a candidate will do it and they feel then that they're a total failure. Well, you're not. You're just normal like the rest of us. We've all had failures.
Right. Can I give an example, please, of muscle memory?
Yes, go for it.
Talking with a candidate, and one of the tasks was to move a colony. And the candidate gave a perfect description of what they were going to do. And what was needed. And then I said, go on, strap the hive up, ready to go. And they got out of the box a ratchet strap still in its polythene, and was totally confused as to how it worked. Well, I've never had to use this before. Yeah. So, and that just flustered them completely.
I went to one this year where the candidate was the same thing, but the candidate had the hive all strapped up, ready to go, and said, is that enough? Is that? And I said, no, sorry. We said, no, we've got to see you do it. Oh, and they were taken by surprise because somebody had done it for them.
Thank you. The next question is about honey again, but what about beekeepers who don't extract honey, why should they be expected to provide an extractor? So if we start with Keith's looking interested in that one.
Yeah.
No, I'm scratching my head on that one.
It's the flow hive.
We'll go to Dave then.
Well, let's assume that it's a movable frame hive, a traditional one. If they don't extract the honey, as they normally do, have somebody else, then for a general husbandry assessment, you're expected to demonstrate that you know how to do it. Yeah. Bear in mind that candidates from who are successful are then assumed to be going on and doing training, either within the BBKA or within their associations, or going on as pillars of beekeeping communities. So unfortunately, you've got to learn to do it once or twice. And if you need to, borrow the club or the association or somebody else's extractor and bring it along for the assessment, and be prepared to answer questions on its use and its care.
If I
Thanks,
could
Dave. Go on, Jane.
When I did my general husbandry, admittedly it was a bit of a while ago, I didn't have all of the equipment, so I borrowed things like a Pratley tray, and I was quite avert about it. And I said, well, this is an uncapping tray. I wasn't sure whether I was supposed to have one, so I actually have borrowed this one from our association. Myself, I use a washing up bowl, and they talked about that. That Pratley tray has been on several general husbandries. I'm not sure that anybody's ever actually used it, but most associations and most friendly beekeepers will help you if you need to get in equipment that you don't normally have. People will lend it to you as long as you know how it works and you can actually use it. That's the important thing. What we can't do is say, well, we won't do that part of the syllabus because you don't like to extract your honey, because that's in the syllabus. So.
Thanks, Jane. Do you want to add anything, Margaret?
Yeah, if they don't extract their honey, we need to see the honey labelled for sale, ready for sale, and for show. And if they don't extract their honey, I'm puzzled as to how that could happen, unless it's a flow hive, because they could get some jars of honey from a flow hive. And this has happened. But unfortunately, it's in the syllabus. And like Dave says, you're the go-to person in your association that, oh, you've got your general husbandry. Can you show me how to do this, please? You've got to be able to do it.
Thank you.
I think,
right. Go on.
I would just add a word of caution. If you are borrowing equipment, then make sure you borrow it several days in advance and make sure it is absolutely clean.
Spotless.
Don't assume that because somebody is lending you something that they have cleaned it to the standard required for the general husbandry beforehand. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Somebody's asked, and I think this is in the syllabus, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is there a minimum number of hives you would expect to see in a single apiary on the day?
I think there's a requirement for three honey-producing colonies, 3 queen-right honey-producing colonies, and a queen-right nuke.
Yeah.
I think that's what it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go on, Keith.
Dave's got the numbers absolutely right there, but what we don't want to do is I've got one colony here in the back garden. The next colony is 4 miles away, and the next colony is another 4 miles away. So I've gone to assessments where the lady has actually brought the colonies that she has in the out apiaries into her garden to make sure that she had enough colonies suitable in her garden. So for the assessment, so you need 3 plus a nuke, queen right, and I would suggest to people as well. Yes, you should know what's going on in them, but you shouldn't I wouldn't go in the day before. A lot of people go in the day before, and you go into these colonies, and they're more than spotless sometimes. So let the bees live as well.
Can I just suggest that you actually have 4 queen right honey producing colonies, because these assessments take place in the swarm season. And if you've only got 3 in a queen right nuke, the chances are they'll swarm the day before the assessment. Because that's sod's law.
I like the number 5. 5 column.
Yeah, fine.
It's
But
a
don't
Any
Any
advance
advance on
on
5?
5?
Any advance?
Right, thank you. Right, we shall move on to queen rearing. What happens if your queen rearing goes really badly wrong on the time of your assessment, and it's worked in previous years, but you have problems the year of your assessment? Can I start with Jane?
There needs to be evidence of queen rearing, and that needs to be evidence from the year that you're doing your assessment. So don't just expect to do 1 round and it to work, because that's sod's law, isn't it? So start early and assume that some rounds of your queen rearing will go bottom up, and take photos. Okay, then you can document what you've been doing this year. You can show a sequence of photos that show where you've got to. You can have some nukes mating queens, perhaps, from a previous round. Ideally, you would have a round in progress so that the assessors can see an earlier stage in the queen rearing, maybe queen cells or queen cells that have been put into small nukes, however you choose to do it. But photos are really good. But no, we wouldn't expect you to use photos from other years. We'd expect you to use stuff from this season, but you know, it's sod's law. The season you do your general husbandry, your queen rearing is bound to go awry. So have a couple of rounds. Now, I quite like a Ben Harden myself, a queen right colony to raise cells, and you can keep rotating things round so that you've got a sort of a bit of a conveyor belt of queen cells. You don't have to just do it once and then set the whole thing up again. Think about it like that.
Thanks. Anyone else want to? Dave?
Can I would totally agree with what Jane has said. The evidence should be from this year. And I would start early, getting your cell raiser sorted out, and plan to have 1 complete cycle finished before your general husbandry. And the beauty about queen rearing is, because it's linked to the biology of a bee, you know what is going to happen on every day. So once you have your general husbandry date confirmed with the assessors, you can use that to work out your queen rearing so that you have got queen cells in a cell raiser to show the assessors. Yeah, it's just basic maths on a calendar. So and that, together with your results and your evidence and photos of the first cycle, is a great story to tell the assessor, and the evidence on the day, hopefully, to show them or them queen cells in a cell raiser.
Thank you. Do you want to add anything, Keith?
No, it's Dave and Jane are smack on. Yeah.
I
Right,
just have
okey-doke.
something to say, that the assessors don't mind which method of queen rearing you use. There is no stated method. You can use whichever method you like, but practice it the year before. And if one method doesn't work, try another method. The assessors don't mind, but practice it the year before.
Thank you. Now, following on from that, what if you have problems with mating nukes being predated because of, all the problems that can go with small boxes of bees? Keith, do you want to answer that one?
Well, we came up with that just at the very big, just before the meeting, and we were thinking maybe try and maybe do a variation with Demarie. To be honest, I would have to go away and think about that. what would be the best way of doing it. What you need is strong colonies to stop the predation. But then with with mini nukes, that's not the case. So I am going to sit right on the fence with this one at the moment, because I need to think about it.
I think
But you
if
might come back to us with some advice. But Dave's got some advice now. Go on, Dave.
I think if you are having trouble with mini nukes, the small boxes, predation, wasps or whatever, then put those to one side and try creating full-size nukes, 5 or 6 frame nukes, in which to do your queen mating. The bigger, the may look after themselves. If you're still having problems with predation, then I would look to use actual full-size colonies with queen for queen mating. Maybe as Keith said, a demery type or a double brood system, and then split them off into 2 colonies. So the colonies are really strong and better able to look after themselves. And if that doesn't work, then I don't know what to do.
Margaret?
I like the idea of the demery that I think Keith came up with it earlier on, where you've got a really strong colony, queen right in the bottom box, a couple of supers, and basically a full-size nuke on the top with the top entrance. I think that would be able to. Can I ask, is this from Jersey? Is this the yellow-legged hornet?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. Because I think it's a real problem there. But the stronger the colony, the better. And you could actually put the double box, the whole tower, in the cage, because I know they've got their boxes in cages over there. You could put the whole thing in a cage, and it may not work, but it certainly stands a better chance of working than the mini nukes.
Thanks. Do you want to add anything, Jane?
I just think that in an Asian hornet situation, mini nukes are not going to be a goer, because they're just too vulnerable. Sometimes our local conditions make a difference to what is going to work. And I love an apodea myself, but in an Asian hornet area, I wouldn't bother trying it, frankly. I would say, though, if you rear all these queens, my son did his general husbandry last summer, and what I wasn't prepared for was the number of queens you can end up with. Everybody in Warwickshire had to have at least 1 queen. They couldn't sort of, come to a group without being forced to take a queen away with them. Once you start rearing them, my goodness, it was quite lucky that we could have apodeas, because every apodea we could lay our hands on was dead busy. So, you might want to line up a few homes for them.
Well, the rate at which they're being predated over there, I'm sure they wouldn't have a problem getting rid of their queens.
Yeah, well.
But I think the other problem is getting them when they're having mated, coming back, and the drone congregation areas probably get predated as well.
Bound to.
It is really a big issue, yeah. So
that does sound quite concerning, doesn't it? Let me see where we've got to. Let's ask this one. Why don't more people take the GH? I'll start with Keith.
And I'll come back to flying. 2 training captains sitting behind a pilot, you can't get away with now. Why? There's 2 assessors. It's quite a serious assessment, and there's 2 people in there. And I think rightfully it has a reputation as being quite serious. Well, not quite serious. It is a serious assessment. It's like an inspection, and it's on your own bees in your own house, or or wherever you keep your bees, or do your honey processing, etc. So why do people not do it? Because they're intimidated, I would suggest. If you do the practice and you do the work for it, it's actually, dare I say, when I get to an assessment that somebody has worked really hard and has got all their ducks lined up in a row, pictures on the wall and all the rest of it, They've put an awful lot of effort into it, and they get an awful lot of reward from it because they sail through it. Some of the very good candidates are really good, so they get a reward from it. But that kind of reward is I wouldn't say is promulgated down the line. That's a personal reward. So the reason why people don't go for the honeybee health is because it's quite a serious assessment, and it requires some serious work.
Thanks, Keith. Jane?
I think Keith's, hit the nail on the head. When I did it many years ago, I was working full time and raising a family, and communication wasn't as good, so I didn't know that people got themselves stressed about it. So I went into it very much with the, oh well, if I'm a good enough beekeeper, it'll be fine attitude. And I think that was an advantage. I think people can get a bit worried about it, and that puts them off. But I don't think you actually need to. It's a really good assessment, you know. It's a 360-degree look at your beekeeping. And if you prepare for it, you will be successful. It is an absolute pleasure to go and assess general husbandries, where you arrive, as Keith said, somebody's got all their ducks in a row. You get to see their beekeeping. You get to hear their tales of success and failure and what they think worked and why. You always learn something. It is an absolute pleasure to see people who are really good beekeepers and have prepared to show you. So, you know, it's great as an assessor, even if as an assessee, it might not be as much fun. Why don't they enter it? I suspect people put each other off, but that I don't think they should, because I think if you do the preparation, you'll be fine, is the bottom line. What do you think, Margaret?
I think people are intimidated. I think you and Keith are right. They are intimidated because two assessors are going to their own house and they're outnumbered. And we are judging them on their bees and their products. And I think that is quite intimidating. It needn't be, because if you've got all of those manipulations in your hands, in your muscles, and you've got your honey, you know what you're doing. You should, what we really say is show off your beekeeping to us. That's what we like. So there's no need to be intimidated. You know, nobody's judging your kitchen or anything else. And that worries people. Oh, you know,
It really does.
It does worry people. I know that's what people say to me, but my kitchen's a mess. So is mine. So is everybody else's that I know. And if they say their kitchen isn't a mess, they're lying. It's very simple, you know, just prepare for it and trust the assessors. The assessors are desperate for you to pass. Apart from anything else, it takes us ages to write the report if you fail. So we really want you to pass. So please.
That's the market.
You know, do the assessment. Don't be intimidated by where you keep your bees or anything else. We're not looking at your kitchen. We're not interested. We're interested in your bees. So please take it next year. Try your queen.
Thank you, Margaret. Dave, do you want to add anything?
Preparation is the key. Preparation. If there are available in your local association or via Zoom, training calls or training courses which help you prepare some of the things you're not quite confident about, then take advantage of them. As Margaret says, this is an opportunity for you to show off your beekeeping skills. That's what the assessors are looking for. If you're doing it in a manipulation and it will work and the bees aren't in trouble and you're not in trouble, that's fine. That's fine. But preparation and practice, they're the two. And it's a mindset as well. There's kind of a bit of a play acting, really, in that for the honey, looking at your extraction facilities, you need to have your room, your kitchen, wherever it is you do it, set up as if you're going to do an extraction. I've turned up to assessments and been shown into an empty room, and the candidate said, well, pretend the extractor's there, and I bring the supers in here, and for the sake of an extra few minutes, actually laying it out as if you're going to do the assessment as extraction. That's what we want to see, so you know what you're doing. So it's kind of practice and preparation.
I'd also say, if you make them, everybody will make some mistakes. We don't expect everybody to be perfect. People will make some mistakes. I would say, first of all, don't point it out to the assessor, because the assessor might not have noticed. And secondly, don't let it put you off. Don't think, oh, that's it, I've failed now. You won't have done. Everybody who has ever done a general husbandry will have made a mistake, at least one. So don't worry about it.
Thank you.
I can add something in terms of the manipulations.
Go on.
All of the manipulations are straightforward. You've got kind of a shook swarm, it's a black or white. You've got changing brood frames in a strong colony or a weak colony, it's black or white. You've got uniting hives, you've got moving hives. The one which is very much nebulous and depends upon you observing things is the brood disease inspection. Yeah. The assessor will be looking over your shoulder, and you need to be confident that as you're examining a frame, you are looking for disease and you're able to talk about it. Yeah. So of all the practical assessments in the apiary, that is probably the one which is the most difficult.
Can I just add there that the other one that you would be maybe asked to do is swarm control. And you don't have to do a Pagden. You can do the swarm control that you usually do, except that you can't use a nucleus, because we ask you to do other things with a nucleus possibly. So you won't be using a nuke, but the swarm control that you usually do is fine. Some people will say, I've learned the Pagden, I know I have to do the Pagden. No, you have to do swarm control without using a nuke that you always do. And that's fine, as long as it works. The criteria is it doesn't
work.
And it works.
Thank you. That sort of goes on to my next question, was which aspect of the manipulations is most difficult? But Dave and Margaret have already covered that.
Just done that one.
Yeah. Keith, do you want to chip in on that?
No.
No.
Can I
Jane?
just say something about the kitchen effect? That has a big thing in our area about, people, oh, they're judging my kitchen. No. I must say, I've been to quite a lot of general husbandry assessments and I've never been to an unsuitable or dirty kitchen. I did once go to a kitchen of such splendor that I had to say, oh my goodness, this is such a beautiful kitchen. You could operate in here. It was all white and stainless steel with the biggest kitchen. It had two big kitchen islands. You've never seen anything like it. And the candidate replied, well, I am an ear, nose and throat surgeon, but I don't generally work from home.
Thank you. There's a question. If you don't treat for varroa, can you still do your GH? So we start with Keith on that one.
Yes. But you also need to be able to talk about chemical control of varroa. And some people who say they don't treat for varroa because they haven't got varroa, you've got varroa, and you are expected to be able to see varroa. Well, either see it or see the problems with kind of varrosis. So yes, you can still do it, but you need to know the other parts of the syllabus. I think it's a bit similar to the honey question, where we don't go with the honey. Yes, you can still take the assessment. However, you need to know that part of the syllabus.
Thanks. Dave, do you agree?
Yes, I agree with Keith. I think if somebody doesn't treat for varroa and they have a good rationale and they're doing everything about monitoring it and to mitigate the damage of varroa, but in as they are doing it, the general husbandries at such a high level, and people will be asking them advice, they've got to know about the chemical treatments of varroa, what's approved, what's not approved, how you apply it, why you apply it. At some stage in their beekeeping career, they may actually revert to doing that, so that it'd be useful for them.
Thanks. Jane, do you want to chip in?
No, except for that you may choose not to treat. We'll want to know why, but you do need to know about treatment and about why it's recommended and when, crucially. So as long as you know about it and you've made an informed choice, and your bees are in reasonable nick, that's fine.
Thank you. Margaret, do you want to add anything?
Yes, because once you've got your general husbandry, a newish beekeeper will come up to you and say, "What's IPM? What do I do? I want to treat my bees. I've put my insert in and I've got this. Could you help me, please?" It's no good saying, "I don't treat." You will be the go-to person, and you've got to be able to answer all of their questions. Even you can say, "Well, personally, I don't treat my bees, but if you want to treat them, this is what you do."
Thank you. There is a question about how many candidates attempt the GH every year and the pass rate. Keith, do you have those to hand?
No, I don't have the details to hand. No, I'm sorry.
There are figures I know in the ADM pack, which is now on the members hub. What was the learning platform?
Yeah.
Hang on.
In compliance. I'll let Jane sort that. And
Where are those figures? Right.
The end of section 1, I think.
If I can give it a segue to this one, Diane, while I'm looking.
Go on, Dave.
In some ways, the pass rate per year doesn't matter, because if candidates are focused on practice and preparation and asking for support and help to get them through it, then their chances of passing are extremely high.
Thank you. It is page 41 in the document.
Here we go.
I think Dave's right. I mean, regardless of what that percentage is, and I have no idea what the percentage is, regardless of that, you've got to think of this as a personal thing. If you're not very well prepared, then you will not pass the general husbandry. If you're well prepared and all of those manipulations are in your hands and you've got your queen rearing sorted out, then you're going to pass the general husbandry, regardless of what anybody else does. Don't compare yourself. The biggest waste of time on this earth is comparing yourself to anybody else.
There were 958 entrants.
Is
No, that's all of the assessments. Sorry. General husbandry, 40 applied, 32 were assessed, 81% of those, that's 26 passed.
But 81% passed.
Yeah.
So
it is interesting the number who dropped out, and I assume one of the reasons would be they don't have the right number of colonies at the time. So I suppose my question is, at what point can you pull out of the GH and get your money back? That's possibly a question for the exam board
you can put it
secretary.
off till next year, I think, Diane.
Right.
Yeah.
But is there a deadline for that?
It'll be on the website somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. And then
I think the reasons people pull out tend to be about personal circumstances. Things happen in people's lives, especially mature people who are settled enough to have an apiary. Just big life events happen. So you have to plan for this a good way in advance. And you can never totally foresee that there won't be a major life event. So...
Thank you. So is it mainly in May and June? And when do you have to agree the dates? Somebody's asked that in the chat.
well,
I think we go into July.
Yeah.
And if I can just explain the process. The BBK exam office, when somebody applies in the new year, they assign 2 assessors to do candidates, to assess candidates. One of those assessors is given the responsibility of agreeing the dates. And I'm using my words very carefully because both assessors have equal weight in terms of their role within the assessment. But one of them is given the role of arranging the dates, which is a task in its own right, and it's a task I hate doing. But when I will then contact the student and the other assessor to agree a date, and it could be May, June, July, depending upon what the calendar is and what the commitments are of people, right? So that it tends to happen in about March, April time. Yeah, to get that going. And my personal view thing is I agree 2 dates. I agree a date, which is the main date, and then I agree a backup date in case of bad weather, which tends to be about a week to 10 days later. Because what I don't want to happen when a candidate put in a huge amount of work getting everything ready and getting queen rearing done is to find out on the day the weather is just so awful it can't carry on, and then it's another month before we can get a second date. So I try to get 2 dates in the diary, one a backup date, so that we can have a second go at it in the event of having to be called off for bad weather or the like, within the time frame of the candidate's queen rearing and having everything ready.
Thanks, Dave. That was really useful. Would any of the others like to add anything
All I'd
to
say
that?
is that the exam board will say to the assessors, have you taught any of these beekeepers? Do you know their beekeeping? And we will say, yes, we've taught A and B and C. So we won't assess them. But apart from that, we will tend to assess people within reasonable driving distance of our home, because it's too expensive for the BBKA to be paying us mileage as well. So we won't, unless it's a particular reason, we won't be traveling the length of the country. And we won't be assessing anybody we've taught.
Thanks. I'm looking at Keith. Do you want to add anything? No. Jane?
No,
Okay.
No. Right, there is a question in the chat that I am going to ask. Do we have to take extracting and wax recovery equipment to the apiary for the assessment, or will they go to another site?
Well, assessors will go to more than one site if necessary, and it's very usual for candidates to have their apiaries as an out apiary. So we wouldn't expect there to be more than 20 minutes between the 2 sites. But in that case, it works quite well to start at home, perhaps if that's where you're doing your extracting, and then go to the apiary, or vice versa. So assessors will go to 2 sites if that's, how you do it. It would be pushing it to go to more than 2 sites.
Thank you. Do you want to add anything, Margaret?
Yeah, I think if we're going to an out apiary, we need to be told in advance, because it alters the time a little bit. We add on the time and it might alter the afternoon. But also, some apiaries that I've been to are very difficult to find because they don't have postcodes. So I always like to meet the candidate at their extracting place, which is usually their home, but not always. But I meet there, and then if we do have to go to an out apiary, we follow them. Because it has happened in the past that assessors have not been able to find an apiary. It's better now with the what 3 words, but
Yeah.
It doesn't always work. So yes, we go to the house, and depending on the weather, we do the beekeeping first, or the questions, or the extraction, or whatever, and then go to the apiary with the candidate.
Thanks. Keith, you're nodding. Do you want to add anything there?
It's the classic communication, isn't it? I was about to say what 3 words, and Margaret got ahead of me. Mobile phones. It's keeping the balls in the air and
Signal.
And just communication. Yeah, that's the classic, isn't it? You got no signal, or the GPS drops out. But or even the week before, you take a snapshot in Google Maps or something like that, and fire it to the lead assessor, who then puts it over to the other assessor, and it's just about the communication. It just helps, you know, and then there's no stress on the assessors, and there's less stress on the candidate.
Thanks. Dave, do you want to add anything?
I think the assessors can help, the students can help the assessors greatly, because as Jane says, we're anticipating two sites. One is where the honey is extracted and the wax is processed and the equipment is stored. A lot of the times that's at somebody's home, not always. And the other one is the main apiary. And it helps us greatly if the queen rearing that we're going to see is at the apiary, yeah, as opposed to another site which is a queen rearing site, yeah, or whether it's in the garden of the home. So I would ask the students just to, when you are organising yourselves, think about the assessors and the ease with which they can get from site A to site B, yeah. And if that means you changing some of your processes and how you work for that season, then please consider it.
Thank you. We are now just gone 8 o'clock, so I'm going to wrap up by asking each of our guests tonight to give their top hint for passing the GH. So we will start with Jane.
Oh, good, because I bet everybody says the same thing. Preparation. My top tip is just to prepare. Go through the syllabus line by line and say, you know, can I do that? Do I know what that means? And identify now what it is you need to do a bit more work on, and go for it. If I can have an extra little top tip, make sure you enter now. If you don't enter it, you won't pass it. And I've spoken to a number of people who forgot last year. So enter it, enjoy it, and prepare for it. It's all in the preparation. It really, really is. We have lovely days going to see people who have prepared really well for this assessment, and it is, you know, a delight to see them at their best.
Thank you. Margaret, next, please.
I would say preparation, but particularly the manipulations. Do all of the manipulations that are in the syllabus on your own colonies, not in boxes in your garage, on live bees in your apiary, all of them, several times, and ask to go to see somebody else's bees. Can I come and try, you know, if you're doing a shook swan, can I come and do it with you, please? As much preparation, as much practice as possible of those manipulations, and the disease inspection, because it's, you know, make sure if you know you've got disease, whether it's nosema or whatever, even if it's something, any, you know, chalk brood, put it in your records, because what we don't want is for you to be totally oblivious to it and for the assessors to find it. If you've got it, everybody's got it. Put it in your records.
Thank you, Margaret. Dave?
PPE. Preparation. Prepare for it. Get the mindset that your honey and wax facilities are going to be laid out ready as if you're going to do them, but without the honey and without the wax, yeah, without the mess. So it's laid out as you would do it, right? Practice and manipulation. As Margaret says, do live bees, do it properly, follow the book, get that ingrained, and the evidence, particularly on queen rearing. Build up that portfolio of photos and things so that if the cycle of queen rearing goes wrong as you're approaching the days before your assessment, you've got that evidence to discuss with the assessors. PPE. Prepare,
Lovely.
practice, evidence.
Thank you. Keith?
I'm I'm going to repeat. Well, right. Let's take it as read. I've gone on with a couple of little practical ones. When you get the tasks, people forget the tasks. They go, "Oh, what was it again?" So have a piece of paper and a pen to write down the tasks, and take a bit of time rather than going, right, it's a Bailey comb check straight in, because we're nervous and stuff like that. Take a step back, think about it and maybe consider from what you know of your colonies, what might suit a certain colony. All right, so write a note down. There's an Air Force thing of prior preparation prevents poor performance. There's another P in there, but I'm not going to go there. Yeah, I try and enjoy it. Yes, yeah, try and enjoy it because it has come up. You know, it will improve your beekeeping. You know, and if you can get that joy of beekeeping, and you know, because beekeeping is meant to be fun in the end, at the end of the day, and you know, but this whole preparation for the exam will make your beekeeping much better, and you will start enjoying it with love.
Can I just say one last thing, please, Diane, and that is that the BBK produce a general husbandry booklet, which I believe is still available, and which is really, really good preparation for this. And the other thing I'd say is we don't expect you to remember every temperature. We expect you to be able to get them very quickly. So laminate something and put it up in your kitchen or wherever you're using for your honey.
Thank you.
It's still available.
It is still available, and I will just point out this lecture tonight, this talk, has been part of the GH26 series, which is all on the Members Hub, available to go back through and find the resources for that. So thank you very much tonight to Keith, Dave, Jane and Margaret. It's been really, really excellent, and I hope the audience will show their appreciation by saying thank you as we end tonight's session. So thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Excellent time.
Questions.
Good luck.
Thank you. Good luck, everybody.
Thank you.